But if you go out with 23-year-olds, what do you expect to do?
23.
It was a phase.
Wait, how old were you?
53.
Yep. We might as well have called this episode The Many, Many Lovers of Frank Akinsete. Because, like, we honestly, within like this 45-minute conversation, we cover off quite a lot of his love life. But, you know, if you are a long-time listener of Lost Spaces, the podcast that is all about lost queer spaces and the memories of the people that drank there and danced there and fell in love there, then you already know the deal, right? You know I love a bit of a detour, and I think those are the best episodes when we get to really look under the hood. I'm making my guests sound like cars. They're not cars. But like when you really get to understand what drives a person and all of the queer footsteps that they took to get to the person that they are today. I love that. Anyway, this week's guest is Frank Akinsete, who is a fashion stylist and consultant who has been a part of London's queer scene since the 1970s, which gives him this really amazing perspective on all of the changes and all of the good changes and bad changes and, you know, just the mess that is London life. Frank and I caught up to talk about the Mews, which was a late night, dingy after hours club that he used to go to in the 70s. But as I said, we do deviate from that conversation somewhat. So we also talk about other London spaces, including the Embassy, and really just what Soho, which was, I should say, the queer centre of London for a really long time, was like all those years ago and how it's evolved and changed over the decades. And of course, on top of that, we talk about his coming out story, his overprotective cat, and as I mentioned at the top of the introduction, his many, 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 many lovers. And just before we get in, just to let you know, there is a cat purring throughout this conversation or at different times in this conversation. So if you hear the prr, prr sound, then just know that there's nothing wrong with your headphones. That is a cat. Right, my name is Kay Anderson, and this is Lost Spaces. Why don't we get into it?
Very difficult to make friends on the scene, the gay scene per se, unless you were sleeping with somebody, really. That seemed to be the only way to get...
Because if you were sleeping with them, suddenly their friends became your friends.
Yeah, that sort of thing, yeah. That sort of thing. But, it'd be quite difficult to break through. So I suppose I would do things that I would maybe go somewhere on my own, whether it be a gay club or pub or whatever. They were very small and feel awkward there and go. But to break, do that, like, what the fuck am I doing here now? What do you do?
No one's talking to me. Oh my God, I'm so awkward.
Let me bring my drink very quickly and pretend I can smoke a cigarette. That's that's how I remember it. That time, really, to be honest with you.
And then on your third or fourth time, someone takes pity on you and is like,
yeah, exactly.
Hey, you're new around here.
Takes pity on you or takes advantage of you, one or the other, depending on your viewpoint.
Yeah, or both, I guess.
Well, both, definitely both, without a doubt.
But how did this happen to you? Because you've just described yourself as an attractive young man that was getting looks from everyone. So why weren't they all over you like flies on shit as soon as you walked into the club?
Well, they were, but you're still like this little kid, nervous.
Yeah, okay.
Standing up against the bar, like trying with a drink, something like a cider or whatever, gulping it down.
My thing is small talk. Like as soon as someone comes up to me and starts to do small talk with me, I'm just so awful at it that I put them off immediately and then they leave me. So it kind of makes it this more exaggerated, awkwardness.
At that age as well, you're so nervous and so self-conscious. so as well. It's quite
Yeah.
tricky.
But and so you were underage and you got into the club. Were there
Yeah.
lots of other underage people, or
There were quite a few,
was it
yeah.
easy to just get in underage? Sorry if I sound really.
Yeah, I don't think anybody gave a shit, to be honest with you. If I look back and think about the age of all of us, I mean, it's only talking about and thinking about that, obviously that was fine. You were looking at Soho, Piccadilly, all this area. It was very seedy.
Yeah.
The bouncers, everybody, it's all very dodgy. It's not, it's not the Ivy in Soho anymore, or wherever. It's really grim. The old Soho was nothing like it is now, or was in the past 20 years, really.
Yeah. So I'm really curious. This, like, you start going out when you're like 16 and still studying and still at school and presumably still living at home. I've just made that assumption, so correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
What was it like living those two lives in parallel?
Yeah, I mean, I just did. It was fine. It was exciting. I mean, it could be a little bit tricky, like, because I'd then, maybe in the wrong place run into somebody like my priest or somebody from the church.
Wait, your priest?
Yeah.
You didn't run into him in a gay bar, did you?
Well, actually, he was one of the first people I hung about with. I wouldn't say it was a sexual relationship, but years later I met him in a pub called the Champion, and I didn't recognise him. And he came over to me and started quizzing me on all the places I'd lived at, this guy. And I said all the places, but I didn't say Tottenham. He said, "You missed out one." And he said Tottenham. He said, "I'm Father Taylor. I was in love with you."
Wait. You're just casually like telling this story. Wait, so your priest was in love with you?
My childhood priest, because I was an acolyte, which is like the ones who did the incense, and I used to hang around with him a lot after hours at his flat, which was around the corner. But it wasn't like that, else I'd remember, I think. But
So what, you just watched TV or talked?
I don't know what
you talked? What?
I'm not the sort of person who would forget sex like that. No. I know you had a hairy chest as a child. I was quite fascinated by that. I do remember that.
Well, how would you find out that if he was wearing priest robes? Yeah, there's something.
If I can remember that sort of fine detail, I remember.
Are these repressed memories? Are we about to?
Who knows?
Oh, maybe we shouldn't dig.
I don't blame you if you don't.
But so he came up to you many years later and was like, "I know who you are."
Yeah, I was in my 30s. So I was in this bar called the Champions in Bayswater, which is gone now. And this guy came up to me, started talking to me randomly, and I thought, okay, I'd just be friendly. It wasn't particularly my type, but it was okay. And he started asking me questions, and I was like, no, but I lived here, I lived there. And I think he bought me a drink.
But okay, wait, sorry to interrupt again. Someone who you thought was a random stranger came up to you and asked you to list off everywhere that you've lived, and you were just like, yeah, okay, I'm going to list everywhere that
I mean, his approach was friendly.
Okay.
And I didn't say, it was like sort of a bit of a game, and a bit of a game for me. Then he said that there's somewhere you haven't mentioned. I thought, who the fuck is this guy in any case? And then he said, I'm Father Taylor. I said, you're joking.
Wow.
And so we became friends for a while.
Did you see his hairy chest again?
No, I didn't this time, but it doesn't end there. So we became friends, because I lived in Notting Hill Gate at the time, on Ladbroke Grove, and he was in Shepherd's Bush.
Okay.
So, I saw him socially and went for supper and stuff like that and hung out. We had a couple of people in common. And then, didn't see him again. I'd probably moved or whatever, or something changed. It just drifted off. And then I went years later, now in my mid-40s, with my then partner to Brazil. And we were having a proper party trip. So and our favourite place to hang out ended up being this escort bar in Rio called Encontros. And then who should rock up? Father Taylor again.
Oh, wow.
And I said, oh my God, what are you doing here? The church had sent him out there thinking, they may have got in some sort of trouble. So he'd been sent, sort of excommunicated to Brazil.
Oh, no.
And
I don't want to ask.
he said, you don't want to hang about in this bar, it's really dangerous. And we said, but we like it. And that's the last I've heard of it, seen him.
Oh.
I'm sure he'll reappear in my life as we go into the sunset somewhere.
What country are they going to exile him to next, do you think? Maybe you could plan a holiday. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't laugh about any of this. Oh, I feel bad.
Yeah, you should laugh. I've got even pictures of everything. That's the worst thing. I've got fucking photographs of me, like some God, I mean, it's mental.
But wait, how did we get here? We were talking about, those two lives running in parallel.
Yeah.
So you were able to compartmentalize them and just...
Yeah, I could. Yeah, and I did right through until I was about 21 at the end of my university. I compartmentalised, because then I had a long-term boyfriend from 17 until I left university.
Oh, how boring. Sorry.
It's boring, but it was a good thing. It probably saved my life.
Oh.
And also introduced me to really fabulous clubs as well. So...
So why do you say it saved your life?
Because when I think about some of the boys I met who were 15 or 16, who didn't go to university or end up on the streets, some of them end up dead. It's tough being on the streets of Soho in the 70s as a kid if you don't work or you don't do anything. If you end up just being, rent boy or something, things happen. And I mean, we're looking at a time which it's not even at that time about AIDS.
Yeah.
Casualties. Hanging about with some quite dangerous people as well.
But from what you've told me, it doesn't sound like you were on that trajectory anyway.
No, and also, I mean, I was like some comparatively a posh boy.
Uh-huh.
So it was exciting adventure, but that wasn't where I was going. And there's no possibility of that. I was going to be educated and get a good job, and that's, it wasn't my life. I mean, some of these kids had already been thrown out of school at 13 or 14, I've never gone back.
Yeah.
Broken families, all sorts, so lots of things. So that's what I mean by that. You could just get lost in the whole setup and system.
So, but are you saying that you think you were at risk of being sucked into that world had you not met him?
I mean, no, because of my personality type, and, I knew where I was going and where I came from.
Yeah.
My first proper lover was probably about 16. I ran away from. I felt I'd run away from home, and he was a small-time pickpocket.
You thought you'd run away from home because you moved in with him, or like because you were spending so much time with him?
For 3 days.
Yeah.
For 3 days, I got chucked out. Obviously, I mean, he's a very handsome pickpocket.
Oh,
really. What I would say is he had his fun, and then it was time for me to go, and I was broken-hearted.
Oh, yes.
So I went back home.
Heartbreaking when you're like 16 and you think, right, this is it. This is my life.
I can be who I want to now. I don't have to hide from my mum and dad or anybody. I can be free with my handsome lover. He's going to take care of me, and it's all going to be great. So that came to very quick and abrupt end. I went back broken-hearted for a while, but...
And so you were gone for 3 days and then you went back home. What were your parents like? Where have you been? Or...
sort of, he's mad or something wrong with him. Do you know what I mean?
They were just like, oh, okay, just let him be him, yeah.
I think ish, yeah, a bit like that, a bit more let me... I think, if anything, there might be a sarcastic... Oh, I don't think I announced I'd run away.
You announced it?
I didn't. No, I hadn't announced it. It was all in my head. They'll find out when they don't see me that I'm not coming back, but it was very short-lived.
I mean, 3 days isn't, it's not like a super long time, but it's still enough time to be like, oh, should we be worried?
No, in my head, they'll find out when they don't see me. But then it ended very quickly.
Oh.
So that was the end of that.
But that's almost more heartbreaking when you come home and you're like, I'm back. And then everyone's like, oh, you are?
Yeah, hi.
Where have you been? What?
Good for you. Where have you been? We didn't know you'd gone. We thought you'd gone on a scouts trip or something. So I came back, dusted myself up, and then I met... And that was another place where we used to hang out. There was a sort of French sort of cafe, and I think it was probably Berwick Street.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy, very handsome, very sophisticated French man. He seemed to take a shine to me. And then he invited me out. And he took me to the embassy on Bond Street. And I could really, after that, that was like one of the places which, that's really blew my mind, because it was our Studio 54. It's just so glamorous and great music and sexy boys on roller skates and tight glittery shorts. It was just fantastic. And all the supermodels and all sorts of people with it. And it was just amazing. It was always in the papers. And, when I was reading The Sun at home, I was there last night in the trisexual, bisexual embassy club. And I say to my mum, I was there, I've been there, and she's like, roll her eyes. But no, it was very exciting. But I found after I'd gone there, all my suburban dancing clubs, I went back a few times, but I just couldn't get into it. I got the taste for champagne. So that was it. Yeah, that's sort of, what did we used to drink? Blackcurrant and cider. I couldn't go back. They'd ruined me at 16 and a half, 17. I was ruined, as on the sophisticated trail. So that was an amazing club, really amazing club.
And the person that introduced you to the club was your boyfriend from 17?
My French boyfriend,
your French boyfriend.
Who was very sophisticated.
Not just a regular
French,
boyfriend.
Very sophisticated, and he'd dress me very nicely in cummerbunds. He
would dress you.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Well, it was a very glamorous club, Bond Street. You could just go in your old tatty jeans. They had a makeover. So we were together for very well, but then I fell for another guy who by now I'd been exposed to, who was a makeup artist, and it was a very pissy, posy crowd of hairdressers, fashion people. I did get sort of taken by him and his predecessor to sort of finishing school very early. Style and sophistication of drinking and looking good, and really in a lot of ways what you could say. I mean, there were a few of us, but when you were young, the guys weren't super wealthy, but they were sort of middle class.
Yeah.
Well, sophisticated guys. You'd get dressed. They'd put you in designer clothes. I did love the relationship. I was very grateful for it, but with the age disparity and also the power imbalance, retrospective, you were really like a little beautiful pet.
Oh, you were like his own Ken doll or something.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It was all good. Apart from, it was good, but then it's not, because in reality, again, retrospectively, he used to have rages, he used to have a drink problem, and there'd be all these dramas in the middle of a club, like slap and the face, and you were looking at somebody,
Oh, wow.
And you're a kid.
Yeah.
You're a kid. And,
well, and especially when you don't have experience of being in relationships.
No
and if you've
idea.
watched TV and you've seen all these really dramatic things on TV, you're like, oh, maybe this is what it's supposed to be.
Well, you got it. Dynasty.
Yeah.
Dallas. That's...
Yeah, I'm telling you, TV fucks you up.
But that's the truth. I'm not joking. I'm not just, having the gay boys, but girls as well. Some of my contemporary girlfriends.
Yeah.
They've had just mad things, sort of crazy situations. So that was that. But I mean, I was lucky in as much as that, I was spoiled. I went to university in Brighton while I was with him, and we lived in Chelsea, and I used to commute up at weekends.
Oh, fancy.
Yeah, I was fancy. So everybody else was sort of at uni in their digs, and I was this. But
eating baked beans, and you were like, oh, truffles.
And... Off, darling. Yeah. My life was not your average student life by any means. So I'd come up and do that. And then I came back to London, early 20s, and we were together a little bit longer, but because he got me as a little protege, he couldn't let me grow at all, especially when I'd become financially independent. So when I wanted to buy my own flat and still be with him, he didn't stop me, and we broke up, and it was quite tragic for him, really. Never really seemed to get over it, to be honest with you. But I had to do my own life as well.
Yeah.
Difficult, but yeah. So that was my early life.
Well, I think we might have skipped over a few things, actually. We were talking...
Yeah, I know, you've got to go back.
So we've got to go back. So the Mews.
The Mews was an underground den for after hours workers.
Wait. So was it
And-
actually underground, or do you mean it was underground in terms of it being?
No, it was in a Mews. It's a Mews somewhere in. Was literally a room in a Mews with a bar.
Yeah. Okay.
In a bar, Mews in the West End. That's why it's called the Mews.
And how did you first find out about it?
That was probably, you got into a little crew, like, so we also, like, sort of all the, sex workers, like, this, would like these 2 little boys or 3 little boys hanging around with them, the managers of the club, some of the villains, will have a laugh with us. And we literally, in this instance, it was just like mascots. So it's like, do you want to come? If you were milling about and you were accepted, you just knew where the Mews was. And it's like you going to the Mews because that's what you did afterwards. But it's just this weird, like, so, do you know what a shebeen is?
No.
Shebeen is like a rough after-hours house, or like sort of not a really functioning venue party.
Okay.
Sort of illegal party. And the Mews was a bit like that. Just drinks, maybe there might be some background music, and just literally somewhere to... I think it was somewhere for people after either working at clubs as barmen, cleaners, escorts or whatever, to decompress.
But it was just a room. Yeah,
literally. That's it. Yeah, it was just a room and not really particularly decorated. Just somewhere you could be. And I think, again, in that situation, in those circumstances, somewhere which would get you off the road.
Off the road? So, like, not walking the streets, you mean?
Yeah, because, I mean, the escorts and the, trans sex workers, they were literally walking up and down Compton and all the alleys around there, Mews or whatever, ripping off people.
Yeah.
So, that's also like a bit of shelter as well.
What did you think of the place then?
I mean, I really liked it because you could stay out a bit longer. Probably most of the time, we're probably drinking like some Coca-Cola or cherry pop. But maybe one of the older people give us half of their drink for fun. Like sort of to see what 2 little kids would be like.
How you'd react.
If they had a little bit of alcohol. So yeah, but it was fun. And also, like, the fact that we were allowed in there is because they liked us. But, there's no getting away from it. We were just little kids.
Isn't it funny? Like, even me as an 18-year-old, I look back on that person and I remember that I was like, yeah, I'm such an adult. I've got my shit sorted out. I know what I'm doing. Like, this is it. This is my life. I'm like in control and stuff. And now when I look back and I think about 18-year-olds today, or about myself as an 18-year-old, I'm just like, why did they let me in?
Well, this is what I'm saying to you. Exactly. Totally. I mean, that's exactly what I mean. That's probably for their own amusement as well.
But why weren't they like, oh my God, it's something really dangerous? Like, we could fuck this kid up if we do something. Why were they not worried?
I mean, I know why with my lot, they weren't that wasn't that sort of crowds. No. I mean, these were all the real people who've been really fucked up, really, to be honest.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So your well-being wasn't top of mind?
Ironically, they would protect us.
Mm-hmm.
The weirdest thing, they'd protect us, but it wasn't... Let's say your baseline wasn't Little House on the Prairie for anybody there. These are runaways, all sorts of horrible... How they've ended up, at the best... sharing a room somewhere in Soho, on the streets, or sleeping on a nightclub floor.
Yeah.
This is the situation. It's real life. And they're surviving. But they were protective. I mean, nothing... Well, I say that, but then I also, simultaneously say to you that I don't know if I'd be alive. I'd say nothing would happen, but things that probably did happen to some people. Some of those people are really grisly characters. I mean, I'm talking about girls with knife scar across her face, cut horizontally.
Well,
it's.
And how did it feel then for a posho like you? Sorry, being overly familiar now.
No, that's fine. I mean, it was fun. It was exciting.
Okay.
It was exciting, and yeah, it's an adventure. And you think you're big. You know you're not big, but you know, if you think about your contemporaries
Uh-huh.
and where you're at, it's really you feel great. You know, a sort of like subversive take on if they could see me now. Really,
And when you're talking about your contemporaries, you mean like people you went to school with and things?
school
Yeah,
with,
okay.
yeah, exactly.
But does that mean that like it felt like an adventure, but it was an adventure you could remove yourself from?
Absolutely an adventure, absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to find out a little bit more about you and about the journey. Sorry to use that word, the journey that you were on. We talked about stage one of coming out, stage two of coming out. Stage one being when you admitted it to yourself. Stage two being when you found your motley crew of other queerdos. What were the subsequent stages? Like, when did you come out to your family? Like, when did you come out to your
Well, the next stage would
your
have been
priest?
at the at the end of university, like people like my friend Annette, who was talking about the dancer, and a few other people, I told, I came out to properly, and they
Well,
were
and that
like,
was at the
"Cool."
end of university.
Yes, I mean, I'd literally be there doing my studying. I'd go out with somebody like Annette, dancing maybe one night of the
Mm-hmm.
week. We'd go to a club in Brighton, and then I'd be on the train on Thursday or Friday and come back on Monday. So had a couple friends down there, but mainly in London. So when I was leaving, I told people I wanted to continue seeing
Yeah.
after I left uni, and then I got on with my life in London, and that was somewhat compartmentalised. But by my mid-20s, I told my parents, who actually had no idea.
Oh.
But yeah, that which wasn't one of those ones. But I was quite fortunate coming from an Afro-Caribbean background at that time, which potentially could be really
Mm-hmm.
homophobic. That my mum just wanted to know what it was all about and was fine with it, really. And my stepfather was like, don't think he really got it, but it wasn't a massive big deal. I didn't have any big rejection or anything like that. It's just like, oh well, if he's mad in any case, so doesn't matter. You know,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
wasn't a
yeah.
problem.
So, but did you go into the conversation expecting them to be like, "Oh yeah, we knew"?
No, I didn't know.
Okay.
I didn't know. Retrospectively, or growing up and analysing it more, I didn't know if they knew or not. But in some ways, when they didn't, I think that part of the reason why they didn't was because they were so preoccupied with themselves. To be honest with you, I don't mean that as a negative. But I just think they were so wrapped around their own relationship. They didn't really look outside. Didn't really occur to them.
Yeah, yeah. And then, like, there's always in the coming out process, there's that like initial conversation where if it goes well, they say to you, it's okay, we still accept you, or some variation of that.
Yeah.
But then there are the months afterwards where there's like maybe some distance or some sly comments or some like weirdness that
Yeah.
comes
I
out.
mean, the only point of significance about coming out, I would say, with my family was that as much as they were okay with it, they weren't happy that my extended family, like aunts and uncles, and so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so that's where I had problems. And I mean, like the reason why they felt that way, or what they said the reason why they said they felt that way is that they knew that it wouldn't be easily accepted, and they didn't want me to be upset by the people. But at a certain point, I just said, well, you know what? If you just want the good bits, like if I've got something in the press or on TV for the extended family, but you know you can't accept the other bits. I just won't come to those family gatherings.
Yeah.
And then as time progressed, and there'd be some situations where relatives might, like the other one, who have a dig at my mum, you know, maybe through somebody else who's new or see me out, like their own kids or whatever, you know, like my cousins or whoever may have seen or knew, somebody might have a dig, and my mum was always quite a diva, would be like, well, you know what, why don't you go and ask him? He'd be the best person, because she knew they'd get bollocking. Do you know what I mean? And then, and then in the end, she didn't care.
Uh-huh.
And also, I was quite, and always having the sort of person whereby once I'd said, and in a way, once my mother said, it's like I didn't really care what anybody else said take it or leave it,
Oh, that's
or
nice.
how anybody else felt about it. And I just say to anybody, I said, you know what, most people don't particularly want to go into, to become a minority, but, I said, been enough of a battle, that's been at one with myself with it. So I couldn't really care less about what anybody thinks, really, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I had a similar experience to you with my parents where they were like, yeah, we like, we're happy for you to be, well, happy is maybe not the right word, but like, we're comfortable with you being gay, blah, 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 blah. But also, don't tell this family member, this family member, this family member. And
Exactly.
they couldn't understand why that might be upsetting for me. And there was this big,
Yes.
weird
Yeah.
thing where suddenly my perception of our relationship was thrown into disarray, and they were like, well, what's the problem?
Mm.
Just don't tell them. And I've never quite
Yeah.
recovered from
And they
that.
just don't get it.
Yeah. They just don't get why that might be upsetting.
I recognise and realise that some of them just were never going to get it. I think I was particularly lucky with my mum.
Uh-huh.
Other members of my family, I was like, even if it was common knowledge, I could see at different times that I felt or was treated slightly differently. In the end, I mean, and it's the way I've managed my life is that I couldn't really afford to care too much about that.
You couldn't afford to alienate your family, you mean?
No, I couldn't afford to be bothered about how they felt. And for me, it was the only way of getting through it. So, well, you know what? If you find it difficult, that's too bad because I've already been through too many years of finding it difficult with myself.
Yeah.
So now I've found some peace. If you don't like it, that's your tough shit. I don't really care.
Yeah. And I think I probably took a similar type of stance, but it's about how
Mm.
you maintain a loving, open relationship with your family when there's this niggling thing in the back of your head. It's like, ugh, you kind of don't really accept me.
The thing is, I'm quite strong person, and I'm also by circumstance and I think by my nature, I'm very social, but I'm also very independent. I like solitude,
Uh-huh.
so I don't care. I really don't. And also, I think the reason why I don't care is because I recognise that if I did, it would break me down.
But is that not then equivalent of just ignoring the problem?
I've had to, I've not ignoring the problem, it's just actually come to the realisation that they're never going to get it.
Yeah, okay.
That's what it is for me. I mean, I've got two wonderful nieces who are my sister's side. She moved to America 40 years ago, and they're in their 30s now, and they love their eccentric gay uncle, and they just do. I've got the most from them than anybody else in my family in a natural way. Whereas the others, I mean, if I'm honest with myself, I don't think they've really accepted it. They don't understand.
Yeah.
So in the end, I just realised that let's just meet somewhere which is okay for everybody.
This kind of neutral ground.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, if it leads to my face, you show me respect. That'd be okay. But that's it. But I don't think I can ever get you to understand why, what, where, and also, I honestly can't afford to let that upset me or bother me.
Yeah. Well, and see, I think this is, again, where I think TV fucks you up when you're growing up, because I always imagine that every relationship that I have should be like this wonderful, loving, nurturing one. And actually, humans, by their very nature, are imperfect. And I need to just have a bit more grace and appreciate and have patience with people.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's more like my outlook generally.
Yeah. Well, you're like 10 steps ahead of me. I'm just like,
you'll get there.
You're shit. I hate you. You're shit. Anyway, okay. So I think that we've gone through the stages, unless there's someone that you've not come out to that you want to come out to right now.
My cat.
Your cat. I don't know if your cat's going to accept it.
I think he's seen a lot of naughty things in his 15 years.
Maybe you don't need to come out to him then.
And now he's got rid of all the men, and it's just him. When I used to bring Hawkins ran, he just bite them.
Oh.
Yeah, he's very jealous.
Was this a way of you determining which ones were a keeper and which ones you needed to throw away, like whether or not he responded well to them?
He was right. I have to tell you that,
actually. We've been dating for 3 months now. I need you to meet my cat to see if this is a keeper.
Seriously, it's been like that, hasn't it, Rocky? No, it has been like that. I remember one young one, too young for me, really, much too young, who used to get really jealous about him. Said, "You like my brother more than me, all you do." And of course I fucking do, silly idiot. But if you go out with 23-year-olds, what do you expect?
23.
It was a phase.
Wait, how old were you?
53. What?
What did you talk about?
They're the ones they were picking up old men. It wasn't me. They were exploiting me.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. You were like, you can't be held accountable.
Stage.
But
they wanted dad. It was daddy phase. They wanted daddy.
What did you talk about?
Oh, that was that's the problem. Like when you've got something that is like trampolining on the mattress, it's like, you know what? The Uber's outside. I think the longest any of those, that orphanage phase, the longest a relationship lasts maybe a month. They invariably, within a couple of weeks or days, they come with their face like thunder. They can't afford their rent or, some...
And then you're like, oh yeah, I can't be dealing with this. Fuck off. The thing about so I'm not like against this age difference thing. I'm not trying to like yuck anyone's yum. But the thing is, you're kind of locked into a role. I mean,
of course you are. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's not something I take seriously.
Okay.
No.
You have to kind of really sign up for that role, I think, if that's what you want to do.
Forget it. You must be joking. I want to go to sleep at 11, not play like jumping on the bed or some computer game. You must be joking. Forget it. See ya. No, I mean, that was definitely just a bit of fun. And also, literally, like, there was a period where it was like sort of, all these really hot young guys wanted to be with this old guy. And I was like, okay, I'd be rude to say no. Let me feel your nice nubile body.
Yeah, that's my problem. It's when like someone's interested in me, I'm like, oh, it doesn't really matter that I'm not actually interested in you. Like, you're showing me attention. Okay, let's go.
And you'll end up with them.
And then 3 years later, we've got a house and a cat, and yeah.
Oh my God, don't do it. I used to do that when I was younger. Fuck that. No way. And then work out how... Make them hate you to get out of a relationship. All that shit.
No, that is bad. I don't do that anymore. I did used to do that. Like,
how
can I antagonize this person so that they'll break up with me, and then it's not my fault?
Exactly, all that. I've done all that. Oh God, no. That phase is closed.
Yeah, good.
Honestly,
good. Wise. We're coming to an end of our conversation.
Okay.
I want you to, let's go back to the 70s. Let's think about Soho in the 70s. Let's think about the queer spaces that existed. What do you miss most?
I mean, I think what I miss is there are fewer people but more individuals, whereas I think that's one of the things which is, for all the positivity about technology, in terms of interesting people, I think it makes it much more of a monoculture. And everybody becomes much more similar. There's less individuals. And I miss that, definitely. As a teenager going into my first, quote, gay club, and just seeing two guys dancing cheek to cheek, or, sort of in a slow dance for the first time, sort of freaked me out a little bit, the first time I ever saw it.
Why did it freak you out?
Because I'd never seen anything like that. You've come from a generation where you have some of that stuff in media and on TV. We just didn't have that. It wasn't, quote, normal.
Yeah.
Two men didn't dance like that. Even two men kissing, you have to get your head around the visuals if you've not seen it before.
But this is why I was asking those questions at the beginning. And this is what I find so interesting, because you sought those places out. How did you know to seek those places out?
Because of your literal primeval drive, your sexual drive. That's the thing, you can't really override that.
Yeah. But you were looking for this thing, and then when you saw it, it felt really confronting.
It's confronting, but confronting doesn't mean it's not exciting
Yeah,
and
okay.
stimulating,
Yeah.
as well. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, but they don't want to do that.
Is it a bit like a car crash when you're like, don't look, don't look, don't look. Oh my God, I have to look.
Yeah, it's a bit like that, but in a more stimulating. It's not as like, I don't look because it's horrible. It's more, I don't look because it's different, but you do want to look.
And I don't want to wet my jeans, yeah.
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 That sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, it's things like sort of, not alone, but boys who got hard on in the boys' shower if you went to boys' school.
Oh, yeah.
You're not meant to.
No, I don't have any experience of that.
You have experience of that. You've had a very sheltered life, Kate.
Well, and my final question then. Looking back on who you were then in the 70s, so when you were young, just about to come out, is there any advice that you would give yourself?
I mean, the only advice I would give myself, the main advice I'd give myself is be confident and believe in what you feel. Just your confidence. That's all.
That's interesting to hear you say, because I haven't got any sense from you that you hadn't been confident in your life.
I was confident, but it doesn't mean I wasn't nervous. When I say to you, I mean it. Literally, you're 15, some skinny little kid corner of a bar with a Coke and ice, truck presents a drink, and cigarettes, you can smoke cigarettes going like this all the time. That's nervousness. Or, like things, I mean, this is a very different context, but things like when we all wanted to go into 18 movies and then sticking on a bit of stuff on your moustache and it's not, And I remember going to a pub with some of my lad friends, not gay ones, and like the guy in the pub where they used to let really young people have a pint. So get out of there, you kid. I mean, things like that. Have a confidence you might think you are, you get unnerved. So, I mean, that would be it, really. Just that sort of...
But that's not what you're talking about when you're talking about confidence, though. Like, you're talking about bigger things in life, right?
I mean, what I'd say is, that's sort of, in adulthood, much later adulthood, and, coming to some sort of peaceful resolution as you go into your twilight years, is that that's one of the things I'm sure of is... and I always say this to people as well, so when people are in a flap about anything, everybody's so locked into their own melodrama that nobody's really looking. So don't worry. That's how I see everybody and everything. We're all in our own little film, and that's the centre of everybody's universe. And it's like, so that's even referencing back to my parents. I think we grow up. When I say I think they were too wrapped up into each other to see if I'd gone away for 3 days or 3 weeks. I mean, I think part of growing up, and that came later in that stage for me, is when you realise that your parents are not just mum and dad, they're just whatever their Christian names were, they're just kids too. They don't know what they're doing or didn't.
Yeah.
And I think that's when you really grow up and you see them really just as another person like yourself. And also, like the preoccupation with what people think about you and what you think about them. I just don't think anybody thinks about anybody that much. Really.
I know, it's both reassuring and depressing.
I know, but we all think about ourselves. I mean, for me, at least I know it, I mean, it's both, and you say it's quite depressing as well. But that's it. Everybody's, there's some narcissism in a normal person, not an actual narcissist, is sufficient to really take up. You don't remember it. You don't care. Horrible, but it's true.
Well, that's a cheery note for us to end on. Nobody gives a shit about you, dear listener. I promise that is not true. I give a shit about you, dear listener. I do. That sounded really insincere. I'm not sure why, but I do. I give a shit. Anyway, I better just shut up before I make this worse. Thank you once again for joining us this week. That is us for another week. If you loved this chat, then why not go and give Frank some love on Instagram? He has 2 accounts. The first is his personal, which is Frank Akinsete. And in the second, he shares the vintage fashion that he finds and sells. And you can find that one at sold out at House of Provenance. It's probably better if you look at the show notes, and I'll just make sure to share the link. Don't trust what I'm telling you. Whilst you're there, make sure you follow me on TikTok and Instagram at Lost Spaces Pod. Right, I think that's us. I think that's all I needed to tell you. I'll see you here, same time, same place next week. Bye for now.